As many of you know, I've been looking for a job uh, as a project manager. When I have been interviewing for project manager jobs, I'm often asked what my approach is to project management. So tonight, I'm going to practice what I say in interviews when I am asked this question. I believe that to be a good project manager, you need to bring three things to a project in order for it to be successful: communication, trust, and flexibility. I bring communication or good communication to a project by learning about the requirements of the project from key stakeholders. I like to meet with them and find out what their role in the project is, what the functions are, and the various requirements for the project. I ask questions of the people that I am working with, and I practice active listening, where I am repeating back what they say and asking more questions to make sure that I understand the project and they know that I am listening and taking an active interest in the project. One important thing I like to do is find out what their concerns are about the project and any risks that they see that could come up with the project. I also think it's very important to establish a process of communication with team members, with regular meetings, providing them with regular updates on the project, and making sure that there is a good flow of communication and ideas throughout the whole project. When I was at Pearson, the business went through a transformation from a print company to a digital company. And part of that transition was combining two roles into one, eliminating positions, and the need to move more work over to vendors. I was a new manager when we went through this transition, and it was my job to help my team through this new way of working and in their new roles, and also to work with our stakeholders in product and marketing to hear and understand their concerns, because they were worried about things like quality, if we were going to lose quality on the product with the product, and meeting our deadlines, and how this would come across to our customers and to the instructors / authors who were creating our content. So rather than just roll out these changes and take like a top-down approach, I took the time with each stakeholder, with my team and each stakeholder in product and marketing who I was working with, to explain what we were doing and also hear their concerns and get feedback on that. I made adjustments when I could, but when I could not, I explained very clearly why we were not able to do this. And I expressed sympathy, like, I know you want us to work in the old way, but this is the way that we need to work. And I made sure that I understand and I was sympathetic to their point of view. And I also reiterated that we were doing everything we could to ensure quality and meeting the release date on time. I'm not going to say that there were not bumps in this transition, because there definitely was, but I was able to bring my team and our stakeholders through this change without sacrificing quality or delivery dates. And I built lasting relationships with my stakeholders, and that made it easier for us to weather other changes that occurred after this one, and there were many changes after that. This sort of leads into the next quality that I bring to a project, and that is trust. And it builds on the communication that I just explained, but it also requires being proactive. I always make sure, as I indicated before, that I understand our stakeholders and respect their role and the knowledge and the expertise to the project. And I also make sure that they feel comfortable coming to me with concerns. Like, I'm not going to just shut them down. I'm going to actually listen and try to work with them through those concerns. A big part of this is also being proactive. Being proactive, if there is a problem, finding a solution, making sure that everybody knows that I am working actively with them to come up with a solution for the problem. When I was hired at Chegg, I was brought on to scale a program called Exam Prep. Now, Chegg is a homework help platform designed to help college students with their homework questions. Chegg was launching a new program called Exam Prep to help students prepare for their exams. Now, the program had already sort of been partially launched, and they wanted to scale it from, say, 30 courses to 200 courses, covering like 73% of our subscriber base. And it was difficult to do that because the person who had been working on this project from the group that I was working in, content operations, was not doing a good job. So there was a lot of mistrust and frustration from, say, the product team with the content operations team. So again, what I did is I met with all the stakeholders, made sure I understand their concerns and the risks, and I put together a project plan. I wanted to make sure I understood how they were invested, and I wanted to make sure that we had clear goals on how we were going to succeed, and they understood that. I kept a close eye on risks and port quality and acted immediately, even if there were minor delays. I communicated delays, even small ones, to the team and made sure that we were not impacting the overall schedule. When there was a problem, I made sure that the product team, if they had concerns, were heard, and that if there was a problem, I would approach, if I had to communicate a problem to them, I also had a solution. It was a successful project. We were able to scale to the 73% that was the goal. But the important thing is I earned the trust of the team, and I created solid relationships that were very successful as I moved on to other projects. And I also improved the perception of the content operations team. Flexibility is also very important. It's important for a project manager to establish processes and procedures on a project, but also know when to modify those. I also went through the transition at Chegg into AI, and I was the content lead on that for both quality and for training data. I worked with a broad team of stakeholders, and it was very much trial and error. We would establish a system and then realize it's not going to work, and then we go back to the drawing board. We had rubrics in place, and then we realized that rubrics for, say, human created content were not necessarily applicable to AI created content. So there was a constant reworking in that. And I think the flexibility and the willingness to pivot was very important for that team and for how I performed on the project. We were able to do things like get a better rubric. We were able to figure out how to best identify good training data. And all of these were successful, not just for the product, not just for the creation of the AI, but also for the teams involved with that. So in sum, I would say that the three qualities that are important for project management, communication, trust, and flexibility, are essential to the success of a project. You may know how to build a great schedule, develop a system that can track KPIs, and be able to forecast resource deficiencies and budget overruns, but if your team is not communicating, they don't see you as approachable or reliable, and you're not able to pivot when the project requires, you're just not going to be a successful project manager. Thank you.